This is Mickey Geek and I'm Dan. I almost didn't bother to video. I was just getting on with things, but I thought, you know what, let's bring you in, let's talk about what I'm doing, and well, we'll see how it goes. So, robot cameraman, obviously in progress, a lot of talk, issues to consider. In fact, let's do this over here. So, robot cameraman. This axis, that's a lot of torque. I don't currently have the gear in place, but you know, I've done some tests of driving this axis and it works. But this axis, the one that's being held up by a lump of wood, is that much more heavy again. So, I want to try to give myself the best chance by adding some counterbalance. Now, if you recall, the previous version of the Robot Cameraman was a big counterbalanced crane. I'm not quite going to do that much, but I'm going to see if I can do something where I can take a bunch of weight and add it to sort of this side of the equation. And this is why I'm holding this. So, from your side, you can see there are bolts that pass through this joint that ultimately bolt on what at the moment is one of these tooth belt pulleys, that's the word, like this. And what I want to do is give myself a short arm, short but as long as I can get away with in this structure. So on this side, it's going to be, the theory is that when this is all up vertically, that this metal bar will be pointing straight down as far as it can go down, and it will have a hole through it that I will attach a cable to, and that cable I'm going to attach to a bunch of weight. So as this arm tips one way or the other, this will need to tip one way or the other, and it will need to lift that weight, and as such provide some compensating mass to this whole thing. Now obviously that all requires you to be able to put that much force through these bolts, etc. So what I'm doing quickly is making up a bracket. So this is obviously loosey-goosey. What I want to do is weld plates onto either side of this, so I can essentially bolt it to 3 of these bolts at least to give it some strength, and I will probably put some kind of reinforcing ridge down so that it doesn't want to flex. Let's go back over here. To that end, down enough now. So I've just drilled a hole for this guy, and in theory I just need to, bum, bum, bum. What I'm trying to do, obviously, is give myself this kind of an arrangement. Ta-da! So I need that to be pretty straight on. So I'm going to cut another piece for this side, and I'm going to do the same thing, drill a hole, fit it, mark it, cut it, so I have this Y piece. Then I will bolt it onto this piece long enough to put a weld tack in near the bottom, and then I'll take it off the plastic thing that will horribly melt, and hopefully weld the rest of the line in to give me this bracket, and then I'll think about reinforcing it, putting a hole through this end, and then we'll see how much force it takes on this pivot to do anything with the mass of the robot arm. So let's do I'm basically just eyeballing this, which, you know. There we go. Just knock the right. So you should go over like that. So what I'm trying to do is eyeball where this will be fairly straight. I think that's like that. Just mark that. Right. This is where I need to remind myself that will be hot. It will be. Right, so that's what we look like at the moment. Not perfectly even, but I think probably good enough. With any luck, I can put a quick spot on here. I don't think I'll need any filler, but let's give it a go. I think that will have to do. It's looking pretty nice. Alright, so I've done a bit of thinking about it. I considered putting a piece of flat bar stock to give it angle like that. I considered putting a square bar stock to give it that. But then I have these nails from a previous project. If you saw a previous video, you'll have seen me bend these nails into hooks. I think this might be enough just to give it a little bit more thickness to try and resist it wanting to crumple up. But still, if I leave them at either edge, I can drill a hole through the middle for the cable. I'm just going to tack these guys on, and we'll see how it goes. If it doesn't work, doesn't work. But, you know, this seems a perfectly reasonable option. So, alright, so it's been a few minutes, several minutes. It's still kind of a bit hot to touch at that end, but it's sort of okay at this end. And this is the setup. So, in fact, let me take the... So hopefully this is now, if it wasn't already, making some sense. So this bolts securely on. From a leverage point of view, this is obviously really very short compared to that. But if I let me brace this a little bit. Right, so this goes up and down. Still quite hot. Right, so let me just let that down. But there's a hole in the end of this, and I have steel cable. So the question is, if I use the steel cable to attach this end to a mass which is enough greater than that end, can I, if not balance it, then offset it enough that the motor that needs to drive this doesn't have to work quite as hard. Rather annoyingly, I lost power on my phone when I was filming at the middle of the section. You just saw me attach the steel cable to the end of here, and you may notice the rubber arm is currently in an upright position despite nothing else being attached to here. So this is hopefully at least a quick mock-up illustration of the power of this, I have down here, and I will film a little insert, a barbell, just a hand barbell with about 12, I don't know, 10 or 12 kilos on it, just hanging from this steel cable which runs down here, through the center of this frame, and down the back. And that means that I can now, it's actually, there we are, there's a little bit of friction which I might need to deal with, but I can essentially offset the weight of this thing being out here. In theory, the amount of weight that gets offset will vary as this thing goes up. So there'll still be fair amounts of torque that a motor driving this will need to have by hand with one hand. Do this up and down is convenient. There's actually more friction here than I would intend on the wooden stool and such like, so it's actually got a little bit more force to it. But in theory, if I come all the way, so in this upright position, the weight is off the ground, and in its complete furthest down, the weight still doesn't come all the way up to the top of this. So there's plenty of room, which I was worried about, to be able to benefit from this weight providing counterbalance to this main arm. And yeah, like it'll probably require a lot of finessing around exactly how this connects through and how we route the cable. Like that. So we did a good illustration, and I have just either sheared the wire or pulled it out of its connector. Fortunately, I was holding on to it. Let's unravel this a little bit. I think I just pulled out. Still got quite a lot. Yeah, so I think all that happened there was that this cable shackle wasn't quite tight enough, and as it was causing friction around that corner, it pulled the cable loose and the weight dropped. Obviously, as I was saying, a little bit of finessing needs to happen in that bottom section in order to kind of play with the difference between there being friction, which is actually beneficial to provide a little bit of offsetting, and there being so much friction that it causes problems. But I think hopefully that has illustrated the idea, the potential. Let me know in the comments if you think this was a good idea, or if you have any thoughts about how I could improve it to try and get some of that mechanical counterbalancing going before I worry about a motor on this thing. But for now, thanks for watching. See you next time.